Hi, my name is Amelia and welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of January. I feel like I had a really good reading month. I ended up reading 14 books altogether. So the first book that I finished in January was Bound by Ali Hazelwood. It is a Spotify exclusive audiobook. I ended up rating it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. I've read it from maybe it's like midway through December all the way to January, just whilst I was at work. I was listening to the audiobook. It's a con artist and a professor romance, which I've never read before, I don't think, but Veronica is our con artist, and basically Veronica's friends end up in trouble, and then Victor, who is the professor, approaches her for help to create a forgery. But then they end up spending more and more time together as they create these forgeries, and their romance kind of just blossoms. And honestly, it was really fun. It was definitely not like my favourite Ali Hazelwood book I've ever read, but I still had a really fun time, and I think if you're just looking for a fun audiobook, I would really recommend for that. And next up we have Souls in Ruin by Jacqueline White. I don't own a physical copy of this yet, but I do want to because I really enjoyed it. I ended up rating this 4 stars. I started reading this on the 20th of December and I didn't finish it until January, so it took me a little bit to get like reading, but every time I picked it up I just was reading like massive chunks. I think I was starting to slump. Every time I was picking it up I was loving it so much and I was reading like massive chunks of it, but then I didn't get myself to pick it up because I was starting to slump. I loved the writing style in this so much. I really love like very lyrical descriptive writing styles, and this book absolutely gave me that. Princess Muriel is forced to wed a foreign king, and he's obviously a little bit cold and distant, obviously made up to be this like scary, terrifying king. It doesn't all go to plan. I don't want to tell you too much about what happens because I didn't read the synopsis and it shocked me to my core. So many plot twists that I was like, oh my god, I did not see this coming. But something happens and then she ends up being imprisoned and she meets death. So this is a love triangle situation. I honestly, the way the book ended, I don't know who I prefer. Like, I don't think I can pick, so I'm very much interested in picking up the next book. Can't wait for the next book to figure out what the hell's going on basically. And both of the MMCs are morally black. Like, when I tell you morally black, like I can't decide who I'd rather her be with because they're both kind of awful, but I'm sure there'll be character development in the next book. Definitely going to be picking it up when it comes out. And next up I read Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood, which again is another audiobook. It was audiobook only, but I believe it's being published actually this month in February, and I really recommend it. I love this. I only gave it 4 stars, but I honestly think it could potentially be a 4.5 or a 5 star. The only thing that let me down is that it was quite short, and I feel like I would have preferred this as a full-length book rather than a novella. Typically with novellas I kind of find them a little bit difficult sometimes because a lot of the time they're very insta-lovey. The only way a novella works for me is if it's a second chance, which this one is. So we've got Jessie and Viola. They're both gamers and they work for this gaming company, and they end up going on a trip away. He's kind of made it very clear that he doesn't like Viola and he doesn't want anything to do with that. They go on this trip with work and they're forced to spend time around each other, and then obviously it all unravels, and I really love this. I love Jessie and Viola. There are so many fun, cute moments just in general with all the characters. Even though this was a novella and I feel like we didn't really get to kind of go into the side characters and it was very much focused on them, they still like played a part in the story. I definitely preferred Two Can Play over Bound. I just the chemistry between Jessie and Viola was just really great, so I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. And I read Burn Bright by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I mean, we all knew I was gonna love this, but yeah, I give this 5 stars. Krista and Becca Ritchie's writing, there's genuinely not a single book that I've read from them that I haven't loved. Like, their writing style just works so well for me, and even though this book is literally like 700 pages, I flew through it. We are following Ben and Harriet, and they are both in New York for college. Honestly, I think the experience of reading all of the series truly is just what makes this whole entire world so gripping, and like there's just so much depth because there's so many stories, and that truly is why like I've not read anything like it. A lot of the time with second generation stories they always fall flat, but seriously this world is just like unlike anything else I've ever read. I just know I'm gonna love every single book in this series again like the other ones. I love the characters so much, and the characters are just so complex and well-rounded, not all straightforward, and some things they do you might not agree with. The story starts with Ben's four older brothers end up convincing him to move to New York with them, transfer to the university in New York. He basically has to live with his four brothers, who are very overbearing, and they're quite a tight-knit family, so they're always up in everyone's business, but he's trying to keep the secret from them. Harriet and Ben just hit it off. They've kind of had this strange, not necessarily friendship, but previous university and school, they kind of had crossed paths a few times, whereas when they're in New York they finally spend more time together and their relationship just flourishes. It's just made me all the more excited to continue this series, and I believe the next book is coming out in August, so I cannot wait. The thing is, like, because of the other series we've had like sprinkles of the future books. I think I'm most excited for Charlie's book, like many people, but for my reason is that I know, or at least I have a hunch about who his romantic partner is, and it is the daughter of one of the couples from the Circus's Family series, which is one of my favourite series that Chris and Becca Ritchie have written. Well, I'm saying that, they're all my favourites, but yeah, so I just can't wait for that book. But I think any book that they write in this series I'm just gonna be obsessed with. Then I reread Twisted Pride by Cora Riley. I rated this 5 stars again. I was kind of nervous about rereading this book because a lot of Cora's recent book releases have just not really been for me. So my friend Daisy reread the entire series and I was messaging her about it and she was like, no, I really love them. So she inspired me to pick this up again. I definitely could reread the whole series, but for now this satisfied the itch. I think as well, knowing like their future in terms of, obviously their children also have books, reading their children's books. I literally love Remo and Sierra like more than anything in the whole entire world. This is the third book in the Kimura Chronicles series, and we follow the of the Kimura, who is basically the boss. Serafina actually gets stolen on her wedding day by Remo and held captive in Las Vegas. So yeah, it's a fun one. This is definitely one of my favourite mafia romances I've ever read, and I think I ever will read. It's one of those ones where I think I'll always keep coming back to it over and over again, just because I love Remo and Serafina's romance like so much. Next I read Hollow by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. I was quite disappointed with this book. I ended up rating it 3 stars. I just don't think it was for me. I think that I really liked the setting, the kind of like creepy like mythical forest was really fun, and the magic system was also a fun one. I don't think I've ever read anything like this before, but sadly for me the characters just fell really flat, and I didn't like our MMC Hendrix like one bit. He was boring. He was really boring. I think because of that obviously this is a fantasy romance, so the romance element is quite prominent. When they're enemies to lovers, the whole like tension and the anticipation of their romance is a part in moving the story forward. I'm sad about that, but I do think I've seen mixed feelings about this. I know a lot of people have really enjoyed this. If you want to read it, you should give it a go, because I've heard a lot of people think this is really incredible. It just sadly wasn't for me. I read Psychotic Obsession by Lee Rivers. I ended up rating this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, but it was very hard to read. Arya is a scientist and she's researching a disease, I believe, and meets Tobias and he becomes her assistant. He becomes Tobias's obsession, and it kind of just unravels and unravels. I think because I've seen Tobias and Arya in the Edge of Darkness trilogy and kind of their life after this, it was very hard to read because this is a dark romance and their dynamic and their relationship is not healthy at all. I think like I always find reading characters that are mentally struggling, I just don't really like it because it always feels very much out of their control, and I just don't like that. Love Tobias so much, so to see him in that mental state was very difficult to read. I also wanted them to have a happy ending so bad, but obviously I know that it doesn't happen, and that was another thing. I was kind of waiting for the shoe to drop the whole time, like, because you obviously learn in the Edge of Darkness series a little bit about what happens, and you don't learn the full details, but you know basically the outline of it, and I was just waiting for that to happen the whole book, which I think is another reason why I just couldn't enjoy it. I had 100 pages left and I literally skipped to the end to read the epilogue because I just needed some comfort and to know that they were going to be okay. As much as I liked this, I think it was just a hard read. It's just something that I just don't like reading, is when characters are mentally unstable and they're struggling. I still appreciate learning their story because, like I said, I do really love the characters. If you've read the Edge of Darkness series and you, like me, love Arya and Tobias, I do think that this is a beneficial read. I just don't think I'd ever reread it. Then I read Little Stranger, which is also by Lee Rivers. I was reading Psychotic Obsession on my Kindle and they had the first few chapters of this in like the back of the book, and I started reading and I couldn't stop. And then it's only 200 pages, so the first book is very short, so I was just like, you know what, we're just gonna read this as well. And it's very taboo, but like, I'm not gonna lie, I had a fun time and I ate it. I literally just devoured it. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. This is about Olivia and Malachi, and they are adopted brother and sister, so they have no biological relation, but they are technically brother and sister because they're adopted. So something happens, and when they're younger, Malachi gets sent to prison, and basically Olivia just doesn't do anything to prevent this because she could have, and she just doesn't. And then when he gets out, yeah. And then we kind of end the book in a way where it definitely could continue. I can see why this would not be for some people because it is so taboo, but for me it was just like a fun time. Then next up I read We Who Will Die by Stasia Stark. I really enjoyed this. This was just such a fun, fast-paced like romantasy read. This was the Fairy Loot romantasy for December last year. I enjoyed this. It was like kind of like Gladiator Trials, which was fun. It just made the book really quite gripping, and I also really enjoyed the characters, like the side characters and the main characters. I really liked our FMC Arvel. Honestly, if a girlie is an older sister, I normally really like her because I can relate. She ends up getting coerced and basically forced into joining these trials, and she has to take a magical vow, and basically that is to kill the Emperor is her final goal. And then she ends up kind of drawing the attention of the Primus, who is this basically the captain of the guard. Also ends up crossing paths with Rorik, who is the Emperor's son. In terms of plot twists, the kind of main plot twist that is revealed, I had expected, basically it was never like written on paper, but it made sense as a thing that would happen, so I kind of figured that one out before it was revealed. But it's a fun one, and this is going to be, I think, a love triangle situation. I don't really particularly care for either of them right now. Like, they're fun, but I don't think if I had to pick between the two, I don't think I would really care who won. But obviously in the next book my opinion might change. But yeah, I really enjoyed this and I really would like to continue the series. And next up I read Collide by Balcabra. I loved this book so much. I rated this 4 stars. I loved Aiden and I loved Summer. Their dynamic, and also just, yeah, shooter and a hockey player romance. The hockey team kind of do something naughty and then Aiden is the team captain, so he takes the blame, and as a consequence he ends up having to work with Summer on her research paper as kind of Aiden's punishment, and they are like completely opposite. It was a really fun romance and I really liked both of them, and I really liked their chemistry and they were just so much fun. So yeah. Then I read The Charlie Method by Elle Kennedy. This was another very fun romance. Yeah, I also rated this 4 stars. I've liked the other 2 books in the series, so I kind of knew unless she did something horrendous that I was gonna really enjoy this one as well. And we follow Will and Beckett and Charlie in this book, so it is a polyamorous / wide choose relationship. I really like Charlie, or Charlotte, I don't know which one to call her, but she was just really fun, and she kind of was this like energetic and like complicated character. They start off as texting on like this dating like hookup like app kind of, and they don't know who they're talking to, but they also know each other in real life. They're not friends in real life, they just kind of like cross paths. Beckett is in Charlie's one of our classes and he kind of winds her up a lot, and then Will ends up turning into her lab partner. And yeah, it was just so fun, like the beforehand and then the during and then the after as well. I just really enjoyed. Yeah, it was a nice way to wrap up the series. And I read The Jasad Crown by Sarah Hashim. Yeah, I did end up giving this 5 stars. If you've seen me crying in my 24-hour readathon when I was reading this, I genuinely, again, still have not stopped thinking about this, but the first part of it where we're all separated, I was just dying for them to be back together. At the start, Sylvia has just obviously, she's got full access to all of her powers now, and her trying to figure them out, understand how they work, that was really enjoyable. I'm trying not to spoil anything because it's obviously the second book in a duology, so I'm trying not to say it too much. The ending, I didn't expect what happened to happen, and then I don't know why I thought we would be safe. Like, I don't know what planet I was on, and I kind of have mixed feelings about the ending because it was obviously, I think it was the perfect ending for the book and for their story, but also I want more. But yeah, the writing was just incredibly descriptive. Sarah Hashim just has this way of like creating such a vivid environment and setting. It's just so rich with culture, and that is, I think, because she bases it on Egyptian culture. I think the duology as a whole is like a new god tier duology for me. Final two books I read were Spiral and Revolve. I read these both in the same day. Just because I loved Collide so much, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna continue the series, and I'm so glad I did because I devoured them. This was so good. I was looking at the Goodreads reviews and a lot of people said this was their least favorite. I think I like them all equally. I really loved this one because I really love Sage, and I think I related to her a lot, which is why I enjoyed her character so much. We are following Elias and Sage. Elias is a newly drafted hockey player in Toronto, and basically he is kind of trying to deal with the newfound fame and the loss of privacy that he's facing. And Sage is a aspiring ballerina. She's just trying to get her dream role, or at this point any role. And Elias end up meeting and they decide to start fake dating, which is a trope we all know and love. I really like this, and again it was just very addictive. And then I read Revolve by Balacabra. I think this was my favourite out of the three. I just really loved Sierra and Dylan's dynamic. It was just such a fun one. And Sierra is an ice skater and she had a life-changing accident, and basically this is her first year back at Dalton after the accident, and it's just kind of following her trying to figure out the stunts that she can do now and like what her skating capability is. And Dylan is a hockey player who has been kicked off the team for reckless behaviour. Sierra is looking for a partner for her duos, and no one will partner up with her. Hockey coach decides if Dylan wants to get back on the team, he needs to be Sierra's partner because he has a history of an ice skater with his sister. Yeah, they just had insane chemistry, and that made the book so enjoyable, and I really liked how it ended off. It wasn't what I expected, but I appreciate it for what it was. That is all 14 of the books that I read in January. It was a really good first month of the year. It had such a good reading month. Only one 3-star, everything else was a 4 or 5-star, which is just absolutely incredible. Like, I literally read so many good books this month, and hopefully we have the same energy for February. Please make sure that you are subscribed, and feel free to follow me on TikTok or Instagram if you want to see more of my face. They are all linked down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!